morning, students. So good to see you. Well, I really can't see you, but I'm glad you can see me. I want to go over a tint touch-up. I know we've talked about it, and I know we have demoed it before, but before I start on the demo, I want to show you a few things that'll kind of help it make it a little bit better, easier application as we go through. Now, I've already draped my mannequin, and I've sectioned my mannequin. And if you can see, I've purposely used this mannequin that has an outgrowth. If I were to take my section out, you can clearly see the difference between the root area and the hair that's out on the ends. Okay, so this client came in 7 weeks ago. She had a lighter color put on her hair, and now 7 weeks later, she's come in because her roots have grown out. Right? So this is what you would call a tint touch-up, a root touch-up. This is actually one of the services that you can actually do at the salon. It'll take you about an hour, hour and a half, maybe two. And this is a great service to learn how to do properly, because these are the clients that are going to be coming back to you on a regular basis because the hair always grows out. So I just wanted to show you again the difference between the root area and the hair that was previously colored. One thing that you have to be very careful when you do your application is that when you apply to the root area, you do not want to go onto the hair that's already colored. If you do, what's going to happen is that you're going to leave a band. So if you apply the color here and it overlaps into the previously colored hair, you're going to have the light hair that was done a while ago. You're going to have a band of either darker or lighter, and then you're going to have your root area that you've just colored. So always remember, you just want to take it to the line of demarcation, and that's what it's called. That's going to differentiate the difference between your root area and the light hair. Another thing that I want to share with you is when you're actually sectioning the hair, you want to make sure that your hair is nice and combed out so that there's no tangles in it. And also you want to remember when you're sectioning that hair that you're going to pull it back away from the face, and you're going to take it into a very controlled section. Try to tuck those ends in, and I'll share with you why. Because if you leave them out like this, sometimes you tend to get color on those ends, and they're just going to soak up that color and you're going to have dark ends. So make sure you try to tuck those ends in really well so that you don't get any color on there. So I'm just tucking them in, and you can see my other sections that I've done that. I've tucked everything in all the way around. Another thing I want to share with you is you always want to put protective cream on around the hairline, especially if you're working with darker color. When you're working with darker color, what happens if this client has dry skin, what's going to happen, the dark color is going to penetrate onto their dry skin, and it's going to leave a dark stain around their forehead. And I'm sure you've seen the clients that walking around the grocery stores with a dark line, and that means that no protective cream was used to protect the client from actually getting a stain on their forehead. All right. One thing too that you want to remember is, we talked about this in our previous class, is that when you're doing a tint touch-up, you're always going to start around the hairline. And the reason for that is this is what the clients see first. If you start back here and your color was just freshly mixed, it's not going to be as strong as if you start in the front. So anytime you do a tint touch-up, you want to start around the hairline. I'm not talking about a bleach, I'm talking about a tint touch-up, because the client sees this first more than they see the back. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I did put protective cream around the hairline very lightly, just a very thin veil of protective cream to, again, protect the client from staining, and also to make sure it doesn't get onto the face either. All right, I've mixed my color, and I have my brush. Now remember, when you mix your color, you can actually use a whisk to color the hair, and then you're going to end up with your product. If you use a brush to mix your color, you want to make sure that you either clean your brush really well after, or use a different brush, right? Because once you've mixed your color with the brush, it's going to have too much product and it's going to get very messy. So I've mixed my color, my sections are good, I have my gloves on. Remember to always wear gloves, because I can't tell you how many times I've stained my hands with color because I didn't wear gloves. You want to wear your apron. I can't tell you how many pairs of pants and tops I've ruined because I got color on, because I just go, oh, I'm just going to do a quick tint touch up, and I ended up ruining my clothes. So you have your actual apron and your gloves. And I've got my protective cream, my color is mixed, I'm ready to go. Now I'm going to be standing behind my client and applying the color, but if you were actually working on a client, you would actually be standing in front of your client. If you're working in the front, you stand in the front. If you're working on the side, you stand in the side. In the back, you stand in the back. Wherever you're applying, that's where you're going to be standing. And I want to just show you the sections that I'm going to be taking on a second mannequin so that you could see the radial partings that I'm going to be doing. So I purposely took this mannequin, and this is a mannequin with no hair, obviously. But the reason I did this, because I want you to see what kind of sections I'm going to be taking as I go around the hair. It would be as if I put a plate on the top of the apex, which is the highest point of the head, and I went around and just took circles all the way around. You can actually see, these are called radial partings, and when I start, I take small sections, and as I go down into the wider area of the head, the crest of the head, I'm going to take a section here, and I'm going to take a section here. And I'm going to go back and forth until I get to the lower area, which is not as wide as this area, and I'm going to take smaller sections again. I'm going to do the same thing in the back. I'm going to start small, and I take larger sections as I go to the wider part of the head. When you do your application, and I shared with you, and I'm not going to sing it for you this time, but I will share it with you, you're going to go ear to ear all the way around, front to back, side to side, front, front, back, back. And that's how you would apply your tint touch-up application. All right, I'm going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave this in a clip. And I'm just going to show you, you always want to pull that hair back when you're applying on that hairline. So I'm going to go in, and when I'm applying or getting my color from my bowl, I want to make sure that I pull the product out and I wipe the other side. So if I have my color here, I have color on one side, but I have no color on the other side. See that? Color on one side, not on the other. So when I dip to get color, and then I wipe it off. Very clean, because the last thing you want is to have color falling all over your client's face or clothing or shoes. So here we go. So I'm pulling that hair back, and I'm going to start from ear to ear, and again I'm just applying, and you want to make sure that you go all the way onto the scalp. Now my client has been here several times already, so she's had a PD test, she's signed the form, and she's ready to go. She's just getting a touch-up. So very clean applications. You also want to make sure that you have a towel. I like to wet my towel a little bit in case I get color on my hands. I like to keep a wet towel here. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to apply to the other side, and again, only on that outgrowth. I'm going to show you another thing on the actual application. See, I got my color here. I'm just going in and wipe it off on my wet towel. When you're going in to, I'm going to show you on my other mannequin again, how your brush should be held. I'm going to take my other mannequin. You don't want to apply perpendicular. You want to do at a 45 degree. And you're going to come in and you're going to apply this way. Right? Oftentimes, some students will kind of go with like this, and what that is actually doing is irritating the scalp because you're poking the client, right? So it's at a sweeping motion, kind of like you're painting a wall. Very flat, 45 above to the scalp. And then the same way when you're doing the inside, you don't want to apply like this. So I'm going to come back. I did ear to ear. Now I'm going to go all the way around. This whole process should take you in the salon, after you've been doing this for a couple years, maybe about 25 to 30 minutes, right? And remember, students, the more you talk, the longer it's going to take you. So I did ear to ear all the way around. I'm going to go front to back. Now when I do my top area, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from one side to the other. I'm going to go from one side to the other. I don't need to do one side and then do the other side. As long as I saturate both sides that need to be colored on that root area, I'm good to go. So I'm going to go all the way down to the back. Remember to bend at your knees. You don't want to hurt your back. Bend at your knees and go all the way through. At this point, I see my section is kind of loosening up, so I'm just going to go back in there and tighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to go to my other side. Remember, dip and wipe. And I'm going to go from one side all the way to the other, making sure you don't get any color on those ends. I'm going to go all the way through. All right, so at this point, I've done ear to ear all the way around, front to back, side to side. And the purpose for that is when I go in and take my sections, I don't have to worry about the sides anymore. They're already done. And also too, if a client parts their hair on the side, you can literally take that part and section it into one bigger part on one side or one bigger section on the other side. Because remember, when you first mix your color, that's when it's the strongest. So if somebody has gray hair, or if they're going lighter or darker, it doesn't matter, that's when it's going to be the best to apply to the part area that your client sees the most. Now I'm going to come in here, and remember, I'm going to take radial parting, so I'm going to always start at the top, which is the apex of the head, and I'm going to come around and I'm going to go this way. So I'm going to section with the end of my tint brush. My sections are probably going to be between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. You don't want to take anything wider than that, because if you do, you're going to end up with holidays, and it's not a good holiday. A holiday means that you've missed some spots of hair that has grown out, and if the client sees that over and over or sees too many of them, they're not going to come back to you. So taking that section, picking up that hair and going straight across. And once you get that motion started, you're going from one side to the other, and you're stopping at the line of demarcation, which is where the old color or lightener was applied. I'm going straight across. I don't have to do this, students. I see sometimes students will do this. Now watch. It's really good, watch. They'll go in and they'll go like this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just going over and over. You don't need to do that. You can go over it maybe twice, 3 times at the most. All you're looking for is that that product is saturated onto that root area, and then you can move on. So now I'm going on to the whiter part of my head, and I'm going to take a smaller section just for more control, and I'm going to go from one side to the next. All right, I've already done this side, so I'm just going to do the underneath side. And I'm going to go all the way through, taking clean partings, neat sectioning all the way through, and then a smaller section here. Once I get to the hairline, what I'm going to do, because this is again where the client sees, and instead of going top and bottom, I'm going to go and I'm just going to go on top. On top. Because if I go to the bottom, I might get color on her forehead or his forehead. Going through. Remember, dip and wipe. Get it right on that scalp. If you can see, you can clearly see the scalp has color on it. Taking small sections, bringing it up. Nice clean sections all the way through until you get all the way down to the hairline. But you can see how smooth the hair is. You can see how even the application is. Here's what you don't want to do. I'm just going to show you one that is something that you do not want to do. You do not want to take excess amount of color on the brush and oversaturate the hair. That right there, that's too much. What are you doing? well, the biggest thing you're doing is you're wasting product. And once you start wasting product like this on clients, and what could be one tube could last you for 2 clients, it'll be 1 tube for 1 client, and then you're talking about hundreds of dollars by the end of the month. So make sure that you don't use too much product, because you will just be wasting it. So coming on top, especially as I go down to the sideburn area, applying just on that one side. Same here, small sections, and all the way through. So you also want to make sure that you periodically check your client's face to make sure that they do not have any color on their face. So I see I have a little bit here, so I'm just going to go in and I'm going to wipe off any excess color that I have on the face. At this point, I've completed one section. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go front, front, and then you're going to do the back and then the back, right? And then when you finish your section, you're going to peel it down, kind of like when you're peeling a banana. And you want to keep the hair away from the client's face and just bring it all the way down, nice and neat. Try to keep it in the front section, because remember, you still have to do the back. And then bring it down very smooth, if you could see that.